All right, stick with me on this one. This is kind of a doozy. AOC lashes out at Ted Cruz after he agrees with her on Robinhood's stock ban. Both said an investigation into Robinhood is needed, but have differing takes on working together, which is putting it mildly. Okay, if you don't know the backstory of this, let me fill you in. This story is fascinating, and it involves a company called Gamestop. Gamestop is a company you've probably seen if you've ever been to a mall or been really depressed with your life. You go into a GameStop, and it is a retail video game store, all right? So you go in, and you're immediately accosted by the GameStop sales staff, and this isn't their fault. Their management is horrific, and they actually go after you. If you want to learn something about GameStop, you can check out Camelot331's channel. He's a former GameStop employee, and he has really talked about how nasty that company can be. Nonetheless, this is a retail video game store, like I said, which means they are on the verge of going out of business. I mean, they're flirting hard, right? They're sending roses. They're booking hotel rooms. They're paying too much for dinner. They are trying to get into bed with bankruptcy and running straight out of business. And this has only been exacerbated by the fact that COVID has basically made retail sales really difficult, while they're in an industry that retail sales have become increasingly irrelevant. I mean, imagine you go and you drive to this store to buy something and they're out of it. When instead of driving to the store to buy something, what you could have done was just stayed home and not driven to the store, bought the same thing, not worried about the stock, and maybe even paid less. Online sales for software deliver this stuff instantly for basically every video game system that's out now, as well as for PC software. So you don't have to really go into a GameStop ever again. And this is part of the problem. As a consequent result of this, their stock has been in the trash. And there's a lot of other stuff about GameStop that has put it where it is, but long story short, its stock has been running a little low. In comes a hedge fund, not a mutual fund, sorry, a hedge fund. In comes a hedge fund, and they decide to short sell GameStop shares. Now, a short sale, very basically, is you borrow the shares. You don't own them. You borrow the shares right now, and you sell them immediately at the current price. And your bet is that when your borrowing agreement comes to an end, that the stock price will be lower. Let's say the stock price is $10 today, and you have a projection that it's going to hit $5 sometime in the near future. So you do a short sell at $10. So you borrow stock and sell it. You make your $10 a share right now. Now, your bet is that when it's time for that to call, you will buy the stock back at $5 a share when you go to basically pay the borrower or the lender. You're the borrower, you go to pay the lender. Well, now it's worth $5 a share. You've basically made a bunch of money. You've made $5 per share net in profit. Now, this is a risky move because if the stock goes up rather than down, then you have made a contractual obligation to purchase those shares at the price on the call date. So if that happens, you can lose a lot of money. Now, a company like GameStop, their shares may go up, may go down. This is a fairly, I don't want to say it's a safe, but it's a pretty hedged bet by this hedge fund. They look at GameStop. It's a terrible company in a terrible market with a product that people don't want in a time where it's really hard to buy. So they say GameStop isn't going up anytime soon. Aha, enter Reddit. Reddit has a forum called Wall Street Bets, or had. Maybe it's back again. I don't know. That status is kind of in flux. But Wall Street Bets had a Reddit forum, and what they did was they decided to bet against the hedge fund. And how they did this was massive purchasing from its users individually on GameStop shares. Now, GameStop shares were really, really cheap, so they could buy a whole lot of them with this sort of concerted effort. And what that did was it drove the stock price of GameStop up artificially. This isn't related to the company's performance at all. In fact, if it was related to the company's performance, the stock should already be dead. But it drove it up dramatically. We're talking well over, I think, 1,000% increase at this point. The shares have gone from somewhere below $20 a share to now up over $350 a share and may still be climbing. I'm not quite sure where it is at the moment of this video, and it'll change by the time that you see it anyway. But long story short, we're talking going from less than $20 a share to over $300 a share. This presents a huge problem for the mutual fund, which is heavily leveraged, or the hedge fund, which is heavily leveraged in this position, which means at the current rate, it's very possible that the hedge fund is not only bankrupt, but in debt by billions of dollars based on their short sale. So what happened is perfectly legal by all stretches of the word. In fact, the interesting thing about Reddit is that Reddit was acting like a hedge fund just without the organizational structure. They were making specific moves, targeting a stock, and it's designed to really impact the stock in that specific way. The reason you take a massive short position as a hedge fund with billions of dollars of assets under management, you could argue, they won't admit to this, but the idea is you take this massive short position to drive the cost down on your own. Hedge funds do this with relative frequency. They try and make large enough purchases to influence the stock in the way that they want it to go. And they're largely successful. Well, Reddit did the same thing, but this time it hit Wall Street. And that made Wall Street really mad. And there was a collective screeching happening from all these bankers and all of these finance managers who suddenly saw that the tactics they were using on a daily basis got used against them and may cost billions of dollars. And I mean, in fact, the tally right now, the head count on how much has been lost is pretty massive. We're talking well over $10 billion. So this is all background. And I'm sorry for taking so long to explain this, but if you don't know the story, you needed this background. Robinhood is a trading app. And what Robinhood and several other trading apps did was they started shutting down individual sale orders for GameStop stock. People were trying to purchase large amounts of this stock at given prices, and this is driving the price up. And instead of just letting the market operate in the way the market has traditionally operated, these companies decided to stop it from happening, in particular Robinhood. Now, enter AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat congresswoman who may in fact be insane. She comes out and let's be honest, she's a socialist, maybe a communist, and she does not like Wall Street at all. And there's a lot of reasons to hate Wall Street. You won't catch me sticking up for them in this video. But she has said that Robinhood needs to be investigated for this because basically what they did was stop individual purchasers from being able to execute a purchase they wanted to make. Something that Robinhood maybe shouldn't be able to do. There's a good question as to why. Like, are they owned or influenced by these hedge fund managers? Were they bailing out Wall Street? Were they trying to stop damage being done in an artificial way? So she's saying this needs to be looked into. This shouldn't happen. And Ted Cruz agrees with her. Now, here's the context. AOC says this is unacceptable. We now need to know more about Robinhood app's decision to block retail investors from purchasing stock while hedge funds are freely able to trade the stock as they see fit. As a member of the Financial Services Committee, I'd support a hearing if necessary. And Ted Cruz says, fully agree. There we go. We've got bipartisan ideas from two extremely divergent members of the legislature. Ted Cruz being a I don't want to say far right, but a hard right conservative, and AOC being a far left socialist. So we have agreement. And this is a good thing to have, because when you have agreement between these two wildly divergent positions, you get to say, okay, wait, maybe the American people aren't okay with this, and we need some sort of hedge against this. Not to use the term hedge, but we need some sort of protection against this thing. This is what Congress is supposed to do. Find the issues that go beyond party and to come together and to address them. Well, AOC's response to Ted is this. I'm happy to work with Republicans on this issue where there's common ground, but you almost had me murdered 3 weeks ago, so you can sit this one out. Happy to work with almost any other GOP that aren't trying to get me killed. In the meantime, if you want help, you can resign. Now, the context of this is related to the January 6th, 2021 storming of the Capitol building, something AOC inexplicably blames Ted Cruz for, even though he did not encourage this sort of activity and he actually condemned the violence. And, that's what happened. But she's going off of actual fake news. I don't know if you know this, but it was suggested that there were quote unquote capture and kill teams that were going around targeting with the idea that they would actually harm members of Congress. The problem with this is there wasn't any evidence of capture and kill teams. That wasn't a real thing. If you've seen this in the news, they don't actually have any evidence that anyone was trying to kill or capture members of Congress. That was a fake story. So someone should maybe tell AOC that that was a fake story, but it's not like she's going to listen. Just look at her eyes. She's insane. That being said, she is clearly not really in the mood to work with Ted Cruz on this, but that is where we are. And these are both interesting sort of stories, though, and they converge in a weird way. We've got AOC and Ted Cruz agreeing in principle that Robinhood app's decisions, in this case, need to be looked into. And this plays into the ultimate narrative of big tech in general. How much power do these companies have to go ahead and stop you from doing something that you should be allowed to do? Robinhood's decision could have cost someone literally hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in missed opportunities for their purchases. All because Robinhood just decided that people shouldn't be able to trade. Trading wasn't closed. They just decided that this is how they were going to do it. And should that be allowed? That's a good question. I don't know. What do you guys think about this situation, about Robinhood? What do you think about AOC and Ted Cruz? Drop a comment down below and let me know. We'll talk soon. Peace. Peace.